This live presentation was produced in Ashland, Oregon by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. RVML relies on the support of our volunteers, members, and donors to organize and present these programs. For more information about this presentation, or to borrow, download, or purchase other recordings from our catalog, please visit our website at rvml.org.
Thank you. I'm delighted, really delighted to be here. I've lived for 26 years in Eugene, and this is the first time I've ever, no, it's not. Oops, I take it back. I have been in Ashland before. I love Ashland. It's, and I'm just really happy to be here and be here to talk about my most favorite subject, which is Egypt. I've been going to Egypt since 1978. I had the absolute joy and privilege of going with the Grateful Dead when they played 3 nights in front of the Sphinx temple with the pyramids as a backdrop. And that was my welcome home party. That's how I got introduced to Egypt. And I was smitten by Egypt. I was so enthralled and entranced that I was back 3 weeks later, and 4 times in 78 and 79, just trying to get a sense of where that magic was coming from. But up until that time, I knew nothing about Egypt. So I wasn't really prepared, and it's taken me, I guess, 28 years to get to this place with it. So I've been, what happened for me in that year is that it was a very pivotal time in my life. It was in Egypt that I got what I wanted to be when I grew up, and began the relationship with that magic that has fed my soul ever since. But it was a long process. First I had to leave the Bay Area and move to Eugene and find a teacher, and my focus and interest was healing. And so I studied with a woman named Nadja Eagles, and she taught Huna and a mixture of Huna and the Western magical tradition and the ancient Egyptian, which was a nice blend. And she taught through initiation and through guided journeys and empowerments. And after a couple of years, she took me on a journey where I became connected directly with Thoth. And Thoth has been my teacher ever since. And over time, I became kind of a lineage holder. So I have a strand of that wisdom that Thoth brings onto the planet and has been for ages and ages and ages. And so that's a real privilege for me, and my life is spent really trying to live up to that, trying to walk that and carry that in a good way. And it's endlessly interesting. So I may be assuming that people know who Thoth is. Is there anybody here who doesn't know who Thoth is? Okay. Thoth is the Egyptian deity of wisdom, of language, of communications. He's, to the Greeks, he was associated with Hermes. So all the Hermetic teachings and the Hermetic magic and the Western magical tradition is all sourced in Thoth. Tarot is sourced in Thoth. And he has a lot of streams of teachings that are coming onto the planet now to help us find tools to deal with these challenging and turbulent times. And so since I started working directly with him in about 83, all of the 3 books that I wrote and all of the teachings that I've brought forth have been based in thoth up until this most recent offering. The book that Linda Starwolf and I that was just published, I don't know what I'm bumping into. Is it this? Let me move that. Excuse me. Do the lights need to be so bright? Can we turn them down a little so people can see the images? Is there a dimmer? It's the front ones, I think. If there's a dimmer. Okay, that helps. Can you see a little better? Okay, this is Anubis. And he is one of my other favorite members of the family of the Neteru, which is the pantheon of Egypt. The word Neteru, it would be Neter would be the masculine, Netert the feminine, and Neteru, the family of the pantheon. As it came through time, when the Coptic settled in Egypt, they had the word nature, and then in English we say nature. So in the briefest of explanations, from my perspective, the pantheon of Egypt, the family of the Neteru of Egypt, are the principles of nature that govern life on this planet. And Anubis is considered an underworld figure. He's the opener of the way. He's the guardian that guides dead souls and lost souls, and he's the protector of abandoned children and aborted and miscarried children. And he is the eldest son of Osiris, with Isis's sister Nephthys, and was raised by Isis. And it was he, along with his mother Nephthys, that helped Isis to find the scattered parts of her husband Osiris when he was murdered, so to remember him, to put him back together again. And in that process, he was the one that knew the embalming rite. So he is known as the Divine Embalmer. That's one of his titles. In actuality, he is the high priest of the ancient Sed festival rites, which are the rites of the renewal of the king, of the pharaoh in Egypt. And we have a tendency to think of ancient Egypt as all of their rites having to do with what happens when you die. But in actuality, they were initiatory rites, and I'm speaking specifically of the Sed festival rites of renewal of the king, which goes back to Old Kingdom, or at least that's when it was first written. Pre-historical Egypt, I have a sense there was something going on there too, which we'll get to later. But in the meanwhile, he was the one who presided over those rites. And there's a book called Shamanic Wisdom in the Pyramid Text by Jeremy Naylor, which I highly, highly recommend. And how this work came into being was as a result of being inspired as I was, yes, there's a seat right here. As I was flying to Egypt in the fall of 2006, reading, I'd finally gotten time to read the book on the airplane. I was so stoked. And it was an epiphany a minute reading it. It was like, oh my goodness, this is the next work. Well, I have an interesting way of participating in the creation of the work. I'm not a seer. I don't have any of those kind of special gifts that a lot of teachers have of being able, being psychic or being gifted in those ways. But what I am is a catalyst. And in my presence, seers, or people, they don't even necessarily know they're seers, but in my presence, they're very likely to begin to see or to have oracular information begin to come through them. And so all of my work, the CDs, the books, the teachings, have come through my relationship with my students, my associates, or other people that I work with, which is a really exciting way to work. And it sort of keeps me from any illusion of owning any of this material, because because of the way it comes in. Anyway, so I'm on this airplane and I'm recognizing that this is happening, but I don't know where it's going to come from. And I got to Egypt, and the first thing that happened is I was in our land agent's office, and he sits there, and he's kind of sitting behind, he's just looking at me, and it's like, oh, something's up. He's got something on his mind. He's never really just quiet, and he was quiet for a few minutes. And then he said, Zahi Hawass has given me a gift, and I've been thinking long and hard of who I'm going to give it to, and I'm going to give it to you. And it turned out it was a private entry into not just the complex of Saqqara, but the pyramid itself, which has been closed. Well, it's never been open to tourism. And so it was a very exciting gift, particularly because the said festival rites were originally practiced at Saqqara, and it's my understanding, having studied these rites, that the pharaohs were initiated in the pyramid, in some of the chambers beneath that particular pyramid, and in that complex. And the said festival rites, for those of you who don't know what they are, were practiced. They were the Jubilee rites. So the pharaoh would be, after 30 years, he would have to have these rites to renew his direct access to divinity so that he could hold the power for the people of Egypt. Because that's what pharaohs did. It was all on them. We're running into a little different paradigm now. So one of the reasons why these rites are coming through is because we all have to step up to the plate and find our own inner authority and step into these initiations that give us that direct access in order that we can co-create a viable future for ourselves and future generations. Because we're pretty on the edge. I think we'd all agree on that. And so it's time to renew these rites. And so Anubis has brought forth this series of rites that utilizes 26 archetypes, the 22 major arcana, and the 4 heads of suits, which are the elements themselves. So the first 22 archetypes, it's very much a tarot. And next year at this time, we will have the Anubis Oracle deck that utilizes the images that are in this book. I'm going to quickly let you just kind of see the family and who's involved before I get more deeply into the rites. So in this tarot, if you wanted to look at it as a tarot, the Fool card or the 0 card is the initiate, is the dove who carries the olive branch as an offering to the various deities or archetypes in order to request initiation into these mysteries. And so the dove is each of us who is willing to step off the cliff, to step over the edge into the mysteries, knowing somehow that they would be supported, and coming from that beginner's mind place, that place of innocence and trust. And so the first archetype that grants permission into these mysteries would be like the Magi in most tarots. In this one is the alchemist. And the alchemist in this body of work is Nekhbet Mother Mut, the grandmother, the oldest of the old ancient archetypes, who is the guardian of the two lands, along with her sister Wadjet, the cobra goddess, who holds these mysteries sacred and who you have to go through. Then we have Isis and Nephthys. Nephthys being the high priestess, the nebulous one, the twin sister of Isis, who's the veiled Isis, the shadowed or hidden one, that keeps the sacred or secret mysteries and knows all of those hidden magical spells and incantations and relationships in order to make magic happen. And so she is the night to Isis's day. Isis, as the empress, is the earth mama who is just out there. You find her with the people delivering babies and teaching weaving and being the great mother goddess who from within ourselves is that cheerleading voice that we hear if we listen. And when I speak of the deities and the voice within us, one of the things that I hadn't anticipated when this work came in that I found quite thought-provoking and interesting is this possibility, this idea, well, they're just saying flat out, this is how it is, that this pantheon was involved in inseminating the planet with consciousness, in waiting for the time when the evolutionary process was at such a state where consciousness could enter and ripen and we could move forward. And when we look at it that way, then they become our true ancestors. They are our actual parentage if we go back far enough, that the gods are our parentage and our ancestors, and if that's true, then they still live within us, just like our parents and our grandparents, and all through that line, that our ancestry speaks through our DNA. And so one of the things that we're going to do tonight when I get to the working phase of this presentation is do some healing work in connection with repairing the lines between ourselves and our ancestors. And we don't have to go back through many generations in our own personal lives to see where it's been torn and frayed and broken. And yet, when we don't know fully where we've come from, it's pretty hard for us to see where we can go. And so I believe that this is a very important piece of planetary healing, not just individual and personal healing, that can be accomplished, that can help us in co-creating a more appropriate future. I'm not sure where the static's coming from, but so I'm just going to go kind of quickly through this just to give you an idea. Part of what in the said festival rites, in order to make that connection with divinity and to become fully cognizant of our divine nature, we basically have to relinquish ourselves. We have to die to who we've been in order to renew ourselves. There's a rite where Anubis actually comes in as the Sacred Heart surgeon and removes the heart of the initiate in order to facilitate the healing, in order for the body to be prepared to become a vessel to contain the light heart, the illumined heart. Because the point of the work is to join the heart and the mind so that we perceive from the heart, that we realize that the true intelligence resides within the heart. And that's essential Egyptian point of view or way of perception that we've come away to. We've gotten very much in our heads. The ancient Egyptians in their embalming rites sucked out the brain and tossed it. But the heart was really precious. And so this is Khnum. He's the one that gives us a new body in these rites. And we go and we for that rite, we travel to his temple at Elephantina Island and step on the wheel and experience this renewal of our physical body as part of the preparation to contain the new heart that's being given. And then before we can receive the heart, we have to have the reconciliation of the opposing and conflicting forces in our life, which are represented by Sobek and Horus, who share a temple at Komombo. And so in Egypt, that's where we do those rites. And who comes in to affect that transformation is the fiery Lady of Flame, Sekhmet, the great goddess, the great mother goddess who fills us with Sekhem, and we must be able to stand in her fires without discharging chaos in order to move forward in these rites. So I'm just going to let you kind of see the pictures because we don't have time to go through all of them. Of course, we have Thoth and Ma'at and Kefra, and it's done in 2 rounds. And the rounds, there's 0 through 10 in the first round, where we experience entering as the innocent initiate and discovering through the rites our divinity. And in that remembering of ourselves, literally becoming one with the pantheon and coming to a place where we recognize that this is truly our family. This is like our great uncle. And Nekhbet Mother Mut is our grandmother, and they're all encouraging us and supporting us as we move forward in this work and in our lives, whether we're conscious of it or not. Bast she comes to teach us about sacred longing and desire, and what it is that draws us to incarnate, because the first round is about becoming divine, but as we humans embrace our divinity, that allows the deities to then come into form. It's this constant exchange that's going on, and who better than Bas to lure us back into our bodies once we've experienced our divinity, and learning how that it's just, flip sides of the same door, the womb tomb, so to speak. And then here we have Anubis showing us about surrender, hanging like Odin did from the tree of life, ready to surrender and be released into the waters of the Nile, where his father Osiris then embraces him. And death in the Egyptian way of life is about regeneration. It's the fertile ground from which all life springs. And so, of course, there's an experience that, well, it's a pretty extensive one. I spent a great deal of this summer going through this particular rite. Being like the cocoon, like waiting for that metamorphosis, and really having to experience the fullness of death and what it is to pass through those veils in order to fully renew life. In myself, I had to go through these in order to offer them. And we have Hathor, goddess of love and joy, as the medicine woman, who in the next octave, in the second round, shows us how to take two opposite things and create a third, more potent medicine, to prepare us to dance with our shadow Set, who is at the next level of that reconciliation. For us in this work, we found Set to be an adversarial ally rather than the devil that's usually put in that position as evil or bad. When he becomes the adversarial ally, it's much easier for us to realize that he is us, and we can't separate ourselves from that part of ourselves. And so we learn how to utilize that adversary as an ally through which we grow. He helps us to see those things that we would not ever look at about ourselves, that we have to come to grips with in order to move forward on our path. And of course, Wajet, the cobra goddess, the Kundalini herself, who, if we approach her from an egoic place, or we have not dealt with our shadow, then we, like the Tower card, all the structures that we've built come crashing down around us. But if we have dealt with these things within ourselves and our shadow self, then we are energized, and her energy flows through us in a way that allows us to become creative with it rather than be trashed by it. And then from there, it's the sun, the moon, and the star, which is Amun-Ra, Khonsu, and Isis as Sothis in her star form. And as we continue then to receive the blessings of the pantheon and the gifts and the power to move forward as co-creators of our reality. Actually, in between the last card and this is the cover of the book, which is the first image that you saw, which was of Newt. I'm going to have to repair this, of Newt and Jeb. Kalita, can you bring me a book, a copy of the book? Oh, wait, here's one. If you remember, the first image was of the goddess Newt and her lover Jeb, the earth, and Ptah, who dreams the whole reality, who's been holding the dream of the possible human and what we can create here for eons, and Anubis choosing to eat of the fruit of life and coming back for another round, or coming up from the underworld or out from the inner world. I mean, there's different ways you could say that, but this book seems to be a marking of time that he has spent thousands of years in what people call the underworld, what's actually the inner world, and now he's bringing forth what he learned from that sojourn. And that's a lot of what this is about. And then we have 23, 4, 5, and 6 are the elements. The earth as the pyramids, water as the Nile, fire as the desert, and air as the sacred crested ibis or auk bird. And so if you look at the major arcana as all 22 combined are akasha. They're all principal expressions from the element of akasha or spirit or ether that informs our lives, that informs reality in three-dimensional reality on this planet. And the elements are the tools, the putty with which we create in this form. And so that's, as I was learning this, and just a little bit about, I got as far as Saqqara. The next thing that happened after I heard we were going to have Saqqara to do the rites in, we get the temples privately. So we are unencumbered with our ability to do the rites, but to do them in a pyramid like Saqqara where you're not allowed to be in, that was pretty special. But the next thing that happened was Starwolf, my co-author, came a couple of days later, and she was hardly off the plane before she told me she had a dream where Anubis came and cut her heart out and began these rites. She had no idea what was going on. She really didn't have much experience with Egypt, but she was describing very vividly this dream. And I said, well, that's the rite. That's the central rite to the renewal of the pharaohs. So let's go find out what else we can find out. And we went to Thoth, and it turned out that she could see so clearly that she could describe, let me see if I can go back to some of, she could describe what they were carrying, what their, oops, I'm going backwards. Let me see if I can do this again. All the implements, what they were wearing, what they looked like, because she didn't know their names. So she could describe them, and then I could tell her who it was and what they were doing. And so over the course of our journey, we were able to bring through enough of these rites to know we were really on to something. And that was in October of 2005. In February of 2006, I got a phone call saying, they're really bugging me. They want us to write this book. I said, Starwolf, when are we going to write a book? She said, I don't know. I'm as busy as you are. And I guess it's, one of those things, well, if you want something done, give it to a busy person or maybe two busy people. So When we realized it was Anubis and what the work was, we said we'd do it. And Thoth told us, he said, this is going to be really fast. It's going to flash through your life like a comet, and nothing will be the same again. And he was so right. So what are we doing time-wise? So what he asked me to do, so we began to write, and because she lived in North Carolina and I live here in Oregon, I would get up at 4:30 every morning, and we would get on the phone for about 2 hours, and she would give me a download, and I would scribe, and then I would kind of put it together and make sense of it and send it back to her. And we had the first round done by Easter, and by the time I went to Egypt, well, I was taking a group to Egypt that spring, and I received a phone call from a friend, one of my waziras or viziers or people who vision for me. And she said, Nicki, I have this instruction for you for when you go to Egypt. I said, what's that? She said, well, you have to find a cave. I said, a cave? She said, yeah, you have to find a cave and go to this cave, and you have to give yourself, you have to surrender to these mysteries in this cave. So at that point, the only cave I'd ever heard about was, I think it was a Christian sacred site somewhere in Cairo. But when I called my friend Muhammad and asked about this cave, he said, well, yeah, we can get you there. It takes a 4-wheel, and you have to carry a face mask because you have to go over the garbage dump. And I'm thinking, well, whatever it takes. And then I called this other friend, and I said, Marwan, I need a cave. I've got to go do some work in a cave. He says, oh, I have just the cave that you want. He says, but yeah, it'll take us 3 days. I said, 3 days? He said, yeah, a day to get there, a day to be there, and a day to get back. He said, and we have to get special permits because it's in the western desert close to Libya. I said, well, how do you know about this cave? He said in the mid-90s, they were doing a dig. A small Italian group of archaeologists were doing a dig in the western desert where they had found some tools next to a dry lake bed. And he said about a quarter of a mile from this dry lake bed was this cave that was obviously a shaman's cave. And that the tools that were found at the lake were dated 6,500 to 7,000 years ago. Okay? So this was at a time when the land there was verdant. So I'm going to switch PowerPoints, and I'm going to take you on the trip I went to this cave because it's fundamental to what we're going to do tonight. So just take me 1 second here. Let me see how to do this. I think I just go like this. No, wait. I don't know how to get out of here. Wait a minute. There must be a way. How do I get out of here? Oh, okay. So then I get rid of this one, and I go to this one, and I just, slideshow, yeah. Okay. So this was the last living thing we saw as we entered the White Desert. Those are maybe 500-year-old tamarisk trees that I don't know what I'm doing that keeps doing that. I would be happy to stop. something I can do to make it not do that? Here, I'll just hold it. I can hold it?
Yeah, we can just use the,
I'll hold it in my hand.
okay, or you could use the hand mic. Let's just use the hand mic.
Should I? Okay.
Yeah. Take it off.
Okay. Okay. So, when it came time to go to Egypt that spring, by the time we got the information to Muhammad to get us the permits, it was too late because it would take 3 weeks to get to the permits. So Marwan said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll just go across the desert." And he had a GPS unit that I had brought him a year or two before. So we went out as a little past Bahariya and then took off across the desert. And it looked kind of like this. It's pretty stark. It's they call it the White Desert because of the limestone formations. Lots of limestone. And I think these aren't exactly in the order that I took them. I think this is the lake bed that was near where the cave was. So I want you to get a sense of this because I'm going to take you here after our break. And it was getting toward evening when we got there. So the picture of the cave, this I actually took the next day, that was the cave. Well, we drove up to that and I'm going, uh-oh. This isn't just a drop in and visit a cave, this is a vision quest. And I think it really I didn't fully get it until I got there. And we'll give you a little closer view here. I asked my guides later about this. I said, 6,500, 7,000 years ago, how did they cut that like that? And I was told, with determination. I was also told that the tools from the village were 7,000 years old, but the cave was used as long as 14,000 years ago, but there's nothing to substantiate that. So one of the amazing things about this cave is on this back wall here, and when I got there, I was so blown away by the sacredness, the pristine quality, and the fact that the ancestors that used this cave, that it's been so long since it was used, that I actually felt pretty strange about taking pictures, but I couldn't resist taking a few, okay? On this inside wall, there are lions' paws carved. So we know that lions live there. And then, so you go to the back is over here, and then you turn left, and you're looking back into the cave this way. And there were lots of scratches and markings on the walls. When I did my vision quest, I put my altar right here, and I laid back in there with my head sort of pretty deep in. Oh, wait, I missed one part. On these walls here, where all these scratches are over here, you can see antelope, the curved horns of antelope, and it was the antelope were the sustenance, I guess, for the people back then. And then, of course, I don't know whether they dated those hands or not, but they are at least 6,500 or 7,000 years. And they're pretty high up. They would have had to have stood on each other's shoulders and been very serious about getting their handprints up there. So what we're going to do after the break is, how are we doing time-wise? We're doing fine. We're going to make a journey to this cave for a couple of reasons. Are you up for this? Yeah. I took these pictures and then I kind of stopped taking pictures in the cave, but this is what it looked like from the cave looking out. So it's pretty desert everywhere you look.
Not a big tourist destination.
No, it's not a tourist destination. And then we set up camp and kicked back the next day and went up at sunset and then did a ceremony, and then my guardian and guide Marwan went down below and I stayed in for the night to surrender to these mysteries, because in order for me to pass on the teachings, I had a group coming a few days later to Egypt. I needed to have experienced them. And so we had only done the first round. So the first round, I went through those initiations in here, and it was pretty awesome. And then I came home and I was reticent to talk about it. I don't even know whether I talked about it. I don't think I talked about it to my group even. I was gestating this vision quest because it was a very intense night, as you might imagine. And I found that I couldn't really talk about it. I didn't want to tell people, except people that were really close to me, about this experience, because it was so sacred and it was so deep. And meanwhile, so that was in April and May of 2006. Before I'd ever started the book, I had been invited to speak at the International Shamans Conference that would be this January in Santa Fe. And they wanted to know what I wanted to teach, and I knew that I wanted to teach the Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt and becoming the Oracle. And I didn't know what I was going to teach it either, but those were the names that came through. Well, then the book came through, the Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt, but I didn't know what I was going to do for my Oracle presentation, because the work that I had done with Normandy Ellis to prepare that, it took a whole weekend to do, and I couldn't consolidate it into an hour and a half. So again, I got a phone call from one of my visionary friends, and I said, I'm really having a hard time knowing how to do this Oracle presentation. And she said without pause, the cave. I said, the cave? She said, yeah, take them to the cave. I said, I can't even talk about the cave. How am I going to take people to the cave? And she said, those ancestors want to help. They want to come forward. They want people to connect to them. They want to heal those lines, and they want to give people direct access to some of this ancient knowledge. And so the first time I did what I'm going to do tonight was this January to about 250 people. And that's how I happened to create this PowerPoint presentation. And since then, I've discovered all sorts of things that these ancestors can help us with. But the main thing that I want to do tonight is help you make that connection. Because if we can heal the strands, the shredded and tattered strands of the lines of our ancestry through this work, then we not only have a more clarified access to the ancient knowledge, but we've strengthened the lines that are supporting us. It's like everything has been so fractured. We're having such a hard time finding our way. And if we can get these ancestor lines tightened up and are held, then we'll be in a better position to hold our place in that stream of life and stream of consciousness that we are experiencing in this earth journey. Does anybody have any questions? I just realized I hadn't paused. Yes. Let's see. It was April. It was lovely in the desert. It was gorgeous. It was probably 80, 85, maybe 90 during the day, and didn't really get that chilly that night. The amazing thing was the clarity of the sky, because I was way back in, and I expected it to be fully dark, and I would lie back and I'd do work, and then I'd sit up, and I could see a glow coming from the mouth of the cave. And I go, wow, it's taking a long time for the sunset. I'd lay back down, I'd come back up. And pretty soon I knew, well, yeah, maybe I was altered, but I couldn't be that altered. And so a voice said, well, go ahead and go look. And I carefully climbed down and made my way to the opening and stepped out under Newt in a way that I had never experienced the night sky. It was incredible. You could read a newspaper. The stars were so bright. Any other questions? No questions?
Do you have your CDs, shamanic journey CDs yet?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. He asked if I had CDs. Yes.
Did you do any drumming in that cave?
I had a rattle with me. And I did use it. I sang. I did sing.
I imagine the energies didn't need a lot of provoking. I'm sure they were probably very present.
It-
Probably didn't need to.
Yes, the energies did not need a lot of augmentation. It was very clear and very profound because there was no static on the lines.
Did you fast?
No, I didn't take anything in there with me. I think I had a little bit of food earlier in the day. No, maybe just the night before. I don't remember. I probably did not eat much. My friend had a very well-rigged, let's see, do we have any pictures of that was our camp. He has solar cells on the roof of his Jeep and a refrigerator. And he's an explorer. So what he does 3 weeks out of every year, he spends exploring countries like Chad and Ethiopia and Sudan. And he can go out for a month at a time and have fresh food. He's really good at it, so I felt in very good hands. This is on the way out. This is the entrance to that desert. It's a crystal arch, all made of quartz. And I just really enjoyed that picture. I had no idea my hair was standing on end. But I know I earned it. And there might have been a breeze. There was an eagle circling. I think that's the end, yeah. Oops. Wait a moment, let me get back to something like the hands or something. Wait a minute. Here, that's a good one. Oops. Well, somebody else had their hand up?
I was just curious, the dimensions of the cave, trying to sense the size and the interior.
Well, let's see. The walls, that here to here, maybe like this, maybe 4 feet back there, and then, yeah, it wasn't deep that way. maybe 20 feet.
Could you stand up?
Yes, I could definitely stand up. In fact, standing here, I could not reach where the hands are. The hands are back in there, and they're way up there. Other questions?
In the picture of the hands, it looked like there was something that wasn't a hand, it was just something.
Above it, well,
Could be. There's,
See, there's something right in the middle, no, between the two hands, what's that?
you know, I can't really tell anymore. I did the best I could with what I had and trying not to do. Then I went in and I did some drawings, but a lot of the details, you know, those were the sharpest details are the three hands that are there. And I'm so glad that I took the pictures, because it would be really hard to describe this to anybody. So what I'm going to suggest is that we take a break for how long do you take? For 10 minutes, and then we're going to journey, and I'll give you really specific instructions. Meanwhile, there are books. I'm happy to sign books, and if anybody wants my newsletter to be able to communicate with me, I've got a mailing list. Thank you. Okay, here's the instruction. I'm going to just tell you what we're going to do, and then we're going to do it. And I'm really going to want dimmer lights here. Yeah, we are going to go to a cave after all. So, yeah, that's better things. Once I start figuring it out, or once we start doing it, I'll know how I'm going to get you to Egypt and out to the desert, and we'll probably transform into a dove and come and bear the offering of the olive branch for the ancestors. And when we get there, as you climb the hill, you saw the hill you had to climb up to get to the mouth, you'll want to just really be focusing on the intention of connecting with these ancestors, receiving the transmission that they have for you, and using this as an opportunity for healing the lines that have separated us from all that ancient wisdom. And when you get up to the top and stand in front of the mouth, as you gather your intention, I'm going to ask you to make a fist like this. Put your hand in a fist and do this physically and hold it up. And as you sort of, offer your intention and that internal olive branch, or I guess I'll ask you to lay the olive branch and then put your hand up, and you'll receive, it's almost like dew forming on your hand, a drop that's like, it's the nectar of the gods, okay? And once you feel that form on your hands, then you lick it, and you feel it enter into you, and that's going to bring you into resonance so that any anticipation or fear or static on your own lines can be cleared, so that you can enter in from that place of purity into this ancient sanctuary. And then you'll honor the lioness that's the guardian, and that energy is very alive in there. That lioness energy, that Sekhmet energy is very powerful in that cave. And then I'll guide you to walk toward the back, and you'll stop and honor the antelope that sustained the people from that time. And then you'll go on into the back, and I'll ask you to put your hand on top of the hand of one of the ancestors. And it's a lot of time it feels as though the hand comes out to meet you. It's like a fusion that happens. And the transmission happens within that moment of fusion. And so I'll do some directing, some guiding, but a lot of allowing you to have your own experience of it, okay? Any questions before we go in? Yes. Can we turn off the fan? Yeah, you'll need a cross current if you turn the fan off. Just think cave in the desert. Just think warm cave in the desert. Okay. Let's see what we've got for time here. That's okay, if everybody could close your eyes and relax. And take a moment to locate the eternal flame that lives within the sanctuary of your heart. And as you bring that flame into focus, feed it with love. Pour love upon your flame. Feel as your flame gets larger and brighter as you pour love upon it. And begin to add to the feeding of your flame your breath. First, by drawing your breath from the heart of the earth, inhaling it up from the very core of the earth, drawing it up through all the layers of the earth, bringing it up into your body, to your heart, feeling it feed and nourish your heart, and then expressing that in every direction from your heart. And you'll notice that not only does your own heart fire expand, but it connects with the heart flames of the other people in this room until we're completely connected at the heart. And a great glow begins to emanate from this sanctuary in this metaphysical library. Then add to the breath so that while you're pulling the breath in from the earth, you're also pulling it down from the sky, from the heart of the galaxy. And the refined energies of the stars comes pouring in through your crown and down into your heart. And the intelligence of the stars and the solar systems and that also feeds your heart flame. When you breathe earth and sky together in that way, it works like a bellows. And so our heart flames grow individually and collectively. Just be with that for a moment as our light gets brighter and brighter. There is a time during this transmission when you'll find that you can look backwards and forwards through time. Here's where there's an opportunity to strengthen the bonds between our time and the time of these ancestors and all points of time in between. There's healing that you need for yourself or for others, it's appropriate and possible to request that healing at this time from these ancestors, and they may share with you a way that you can help yourself or others in the future as well. When you feel complete with this time, this visit with these ancestors, offer your gratitude for the teaching that you have received here and the connection that you've made. As you prepare to leave the cave, be sure to stop and pay respects once again to the antelope and the lioness. This time, when you step out of the mouth of the cave and look out over the desert, perhaps you will get a view of what this land was like when it was verdant and green 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. As you begin to make your way down the steep sand hill in front of the cave, each step will bring you closer and closer back to this time and this place here at the Metaphysical Library in Ashland, where you rejoin the circle of light, the circle of life, the circle of kindred spirits who've come together to take this journey this night. As you feel yourself come back into your physical form, ground and center, and whenever you're ready, open your eyes. How you doing? Feedback, anyone? Sharing, questions? A second.
Nicki, I had a question about diverting a little bit. There's lots of questions about, Egypt all the time, and are there lots of things the government's not talking about with hidden passages and things under the Sphinx spa, and things that you've heard about that aren't in the public domain that you could share with us tonight?
Sure. Let me come back to that, because I really want to be in this cave energy, and then I will come back to that, especially about the Sphinx, okay? You wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say that it was just a very strong energy, and I felt the power of it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. You do, if anybody's going to hear the question, can you? Yeah.
I just have a relationship with the dove that feels real incomplete for me. And as a symbol, I don't really know the dove very well. Can you help me complete that? I went there as a dove, and I kind of left that doveness somewhere. And I didn't really, I came back as a human in my body, and I'd love to.
And where's the dove?
Yeah, I'd like to have some.
Okay. Thank you. I will make note of that in my mind for future ones to have, that it might be more. Would you have felt more complete if you turned back into the dove to fly back?
Yeah, the relationship with the doveness is my question.
Okay, the relationship with the doveness is that to enter these mysteries, we have to become innocent again. We have to go back to the beginner's mind. We have to go back to a symbol of some form of being on the planet that we all can agree on. It's, it stands for peace, and that contains within it a sense of innocence. And doves kind of universally are like that. Also, when you go to Egypt, if you look at the capitals of, say, Luxor Temple or many of the temples, they're filled with doves. They hang out there. That's where they live. Yeah, many a morning in Egypt, I've wakened to the sound of doves cooing outside my hotel windows. Very, very prevalent. Yes? Sekhmet, did you sense Sekhmet when you were there? So Sekhmet is the goddess that is the lioness goddess of Egypt. So for me, when I was in that cave, I was very, very, very aware of her presence as a guardian of those energies. Sekhmet's name means the power, the mighty one. And she is the feminine face of the sun. So she is that fire that can parch and consume and destroy and also nurture, give life, and create. And she was said to have brought the plagues to Egypt, and then they would send you to her to your bedside to heal them. She's the quintessential healer, the compassionate healing goddess of Egypt. And that's, well, I relate to all aspects of her. In the work of the Shamanic Mysteries, she brings the fire that transforms. And, you know, healing comes through transformation. But she's also very protective of her children. And when she calls you and you are one of hers, then she is a tremendous guardian and protectress. Is that sufficient? You're welcome. Other sharings or questions?
Did you share your vision quest? Came forth?
I couldn't contain it. I can barely articulate it, let alone contain it in what I experienced. I went in to surrender to the rites of that were to come forth in the book, The Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt. So I was having my heart taken out and my organs cleaned out and my body prepared, and then I was left actually to go through the mysteries until I got to the place where everyone else that I was leading would get their hearts back. And I would say that at the Temple of Edfu, that trip was probably the most profound healing I've experienced in my life. And it was just a part of the flow of what happened in the cave. It was a very profound experience that happened very much outside of time. It was very concentrated into, maybe 8 or 10 hours. And it'd be pretty hard to articulate much of it, but that'll give you kind of a sense of it. Yes, please.
What was the significance of the Sphinx? And is that an actual yoga, like asana posture? And is that maybe a human being or does it have something or other?
Okay, now we get back to your question also. I spent a lot of time at the Sphinx. When I first went with the Grateful Dead in 1978, we were all staying at the Mina House. And I would get up before sunrise every morning and I'd go down with my cornmeal and talk my way down between the paws and offer my cornmeal and make my prayers. And it wasn't until I was doing the research for this book that I was told that pharaohs were initiated at sunrise there, that one of the rites that they had to do happened there. There's a lot of controversy about how old the Sphinx is. Conventional, traditional Egyptologists, which really isn't that old, has suggested that it was built at the time of the pyramids, but there's lots more evidence to show that it was around a lot longer. If you go to Hancock and Baval and the Orion mystery or the mysteries of the Sphinx, they dated about 10,500 years ago and say that that it was carved there. An interesting thing about it is it's carved out of one massive block of bedrock. It is not pieced together. It is one piece that was carved. It's obvious if you look at a side view that the head is not in proportion with the rest of the body. The head is much smaller. So it's been suggested that it was a lion before it was carved into the face of a pharaoh, and that it's possible that Egyptologists are dating it from the time that the head was changed to reflect the face of a pharaoh. I have a painting of Anubis in my house, a huge painting, as big as this screen, where he is in that asana or in that Sphinx pose, which I could certainly see as a yogic pose, where I'm not too certain. I'm not uncertain that it might not have been a jackal before it was a lioness or a lion. I mean, that it is so incredibly undateable age-wise. The discussion about the library supposedly underneath the Sphinx. Yes, there have been. Oh. What am I doing? Anyhow, yes, there have been chambers discovered. To my knowledge, and I'm pretty close to some people I know people who've been down there, and there's nothing under there that's been found, and they've really looked like crazy. Is there a library associated with it? A hall of records, so to speak? Yes, but it is the Sphinx itself. It's not a room with scrolls. It's the granite and the quartz within the granite that holds the history and the intention that was put into it when it was built, and it's like an earth altar. It holds the place in our deck, in our book, of the Hierophant. And it's the connection to our source. It's the place you go to phone home. and if you meditate with it appropriately and open your heart to the Sphinx and listen, that library opens up to you directly. That's my understanding of it. Does that answer your question? Part of it.
That's true in the cathedrals in Europe too. You have the combination of granite, water, and magnetic energy, and these are libraries and sources. And it works on the same principles.
And all the temples in Egypt are like that. I mean, there was such intention put into the building and carving of those temples that often people who really aren't prepared and who don't realize what they're getting into but are just sensitive will just get blasted and awakened. But people who go there with guides that know what they're doing and with the intention, it's a place to be remembered, to reclaim the missing parts of yourself, because our story is on all those walls. And the interpretations as been literally given only take us so far. The direct experience takes you to a completely different way of knowledge of what they were trying to say when they built those temples. It's really amazing. How many of you have been to Egypt? You know what I mean? Have I got it right? What other questions? Yes.
Would you say something
Komombo. Sure. Komombo is one of my favorite temples. I don't have it up on a PowerPoint, or I show it to everybody. It's so incredibly beautiful. It's just what you think an Egyptian temple ought to look like. It's so pretty. It sits up over the river, and it's just, it's glorious. And it's dedicated to Horus and Sobek. And it's the only temple that's left anyway that's dedicated to two deities. And so as you're walking in, on the left is the Horus journey, and on the right the Sobek journey, and you can go through between them, and then there's they share an altar at the back end. And Horus is the currently reigning energy. It's the next generation from his father Osiris, the previous ruler, the ruler from the first time, or the Zep Tepi that brought consciousness onto this planet in that golden era. And after he was slain, we've been kind of working our way back to that. The conception, the birth, and the growth and bringing Horus to maturity is the story of the pantheon of Egypt. It's also our story as we come into the possibility of who we can be and who we were destined to be, as we each claim that inner authority. All pharaohs are Horuses. And so being born onto the planet and the journey to becoming the divine one, the golden one, the reigning one, is Horus's journey. Sobek represents think of crocodiles. He's the crocodile god. Crocodile is one of the few species on the planet that has not changed its appearance in how long? Since the dinosaurs, probably. So there's a certain wisdom, a certain practical functionality and ability to survive that the crocodile has that makes him a very powerful deity of fertility and of strength. And we as humans still carry that reptilian brain. So we want to move forward and become Horus, but we don't want to forget our foundations and our roots. And that reptilian brain is what keeps our autonomic functions going, so we don't have to think about a whole bunch of the stuff that is required for us to stay alive. So we want to honor and hold that foundation and still move into the neocortex and this higher level of intelligence that our evolution has brought to us. Of course, now we're at a time where we're going to need to mutate in order to survive. We can't wait for evolution anymore. Yes?
Yeah, you're talking about evolution. Now, can you say anything about their use and knowledge of the invisible higher element of monatomic gold that they used in the king chamber?
Tell me what monatomic gold is.
Well, I'm asking you. I don't
know.
Okay. That's something.
Don't know it. Actually, it's a word that's just been floating by just really recently. So it's not something I've checked out or researched, so I couldn't really speak on it.
Can you say something about the healing waters at Komombo and the crocodile?
I don't know about what you're saying about the healing waters. I know that there's a well and there's a channel that it said that initiates had to navigate in order to achieve some level of initiation. And it was definitely a healing temple. And on the back walls of the temple, there are images of surgical tools. And this was a place, it was like a clinic where people came to receive healing and surgery. So the temple was definitely a healing temple, devoted to healing. Any other questions? Wow, it must be 9 o'clock, and it is. So I just, I want to invite you all to come to Egypt with me. I go twice a year. This year's already closed. The one this November is full. But I'm doing one next spring with Bruce Lipton, and we're doing this this grand convergence of when science and shamanism collide. And so we're doing a presentation in Eugene the end of November, an evening and a day, where we'll be dialoguing, and he'll be making scientific points, and then I'll be giving people a shamanic experience of what he's saying so that we can see how science and consciousness are merging and have a direct experience of that merger. And we're going to do that in Egypt in April with these mysteries. So if anybody's interested in that, you can talk to me. Yes?
Could you talk about your CDs?
There's 5 CDs. I'll talk about the ones that are giveaways because they're the most important ones. Most of the CDs are audio illustrations from Power Animal Meditations, and one of those is the Kuan Yin Journey for Healing, the Journey for Healing with Kuan Yin, and that we've given thousands of them away to people with AIDS and leukemia and cancer, and anyone who buys those, that money goes towards giving more away. And and that has Jerry Garcia on it. And then the other one is And You Will Fly, which we did for children with potentially terminal diseases that we give away to kids. And what we found is the best way to get them to kids. And again, if you buy it, that means 5 kids get them for free. But we're also, all kids love them. Kids between 4 and 10, I would say. And then if you know any kids and you get one for a healthy kid, you can tell them, and if you find a sick kid, when you find a sick kid, you have to pass it on. So I'm really excited about that. That one's like a radio play. It's a bear circus. It's an animal circus. And the child who listens to it becomes the volunteer in the circus, and is empowered through the experiences of taming the tigers and playing with the coyote clowns and getting their fortune read by the raven and so forth. Yeah, and then there's more CDs, and there's more books too.
Do you have any of those necklaces available? That is really cool.
Well, I do the glass work. Yeah, I'm an alchemist. No, but I can show you, I can take you in Egypt to where you can get them. That's where it's from. Yes?
Which CD is the one was that the piece of music that you played for the meditation?
The piece of music was from an album called Ancient Voices. Anima is the person. And the first one that I played when you were coming in is called Ghazal, the Egyptian music. No, the music that's on my CDs, most of it's produced by Roland Barker. And he's just an excellent musician. And the music on the kids one is my favorite. It's really great. But they're all really well produced. Any other questions? Well, I thank you all. Oh, wait, yes, I have one more announcement. Khalida, I want to introduce you to Khalida. Khalida teaches alchemical healing, which is the healing form I did, and she's going to be teaching in Eugene. And so she's got some flyers, and that's all happening this month, right? Yeah. And so I didn't talk about alchemical healing because I didn't come to talk about it, but I've got a book on it. It's a really comprehensive healing form. Thank you all for coming. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
RVML Resource Center is a volunteer-operated federal 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. RVML is dedicated to providing easy access to a comprehensive collection of information on a variety of metaphysical, spiritual, and personal development subjects. RVML accepts and appreciates all donations. Material and monetary contributions are fully tax-deductible. This recording is not copyrighted, and permission is granted to broadcast, exhibit, or duplicate all or part of this program for non-commercial educational purposes. This live presentation was organized and presented by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. For more information, please visit rvml.org.